Kyle Pitts is rostered in 67% of ESPN leagues, so there's a good chance he's not available, but Michael Penix Jr. has been throwing to him a lot, and he has a really nice matchup against Miami this week. He's averaging 6.3 targets and 10.8 fantasy points per game, and last week he had 10 targets against the 49ers, finishing the day with 7 catches for 62 yards and 13.2 fantasy points. The floor is high enough to start him against Miami. He's rostered in 62% of ESPN leagues, and playing against a strong Kansas City defense isn't ideal, but Ertz is another tight end that's averaging over 10 fantasy points per game and gives you a solid floor most weeks. He's had 4 touchdowns this season, including 2 over the last 2 weeks, and could get some additional looks this week as a safety valve for Marcus Mariota. Debo and Terry McLaurin are in line to play, but they're still banged up, which could lead to a limited workload for both of them and more opportunities for Ertz. Despite being drafted high, a lot of people, myself included, dropped Evan Ingram a few weeks into the season when he wasn't producing and then got injured. But he's been back on the field for a month and has actually looked pretty good. Over the last 4 weeks, he's averaging nearly 7 targets and 10 fantasy points a game, which is just fine for the tight end position. He's playing the Dallas Cowboys this week, who have the worst defense in the NFL and could easily have another double-digit fantasy day. He's currently rostered in 59% of ESPN leagues. Rookies Harold Fannin Jr. and Quinshon Judkins have been bright spots for the Browns offense. The Patriots are a top 3 defense against the run, so Judkins may struggle a little bit, forcing Cleveland to throw the ball more. And if they're playing from behind, that usually leads to a pass-heavy offense too. Fannin is the lead pass catcher in Cleveland. Jerry Jeudy has been struggling all season. Judkins is not really involved in the passing game, and David Njoku is injured. If Njoku plays on Sunday, he will take some targets away from Fannin. But if he's out, I think Fannin is a safe play. He's rostered in 56% of ESPN leagues. Last year, Cade Otton had a really good run for a month straight when Godwin and Evans were both injured. And unfortunately, Godwin and Evans are both out again. Egbuka is the clear wide receiver 1, but Baker has more than enough targets to go around, and Otton has actually been involved a lot over the last 3 weeks, putting up big numbers against good defenses: Seattle, San Francisco, and Detroit. Over those 3 weeks, he averaged 7 targets, 5 catches, 66 yards, and 12 fantasy points per game. Egbuka and Tez Johnson will probably get the bulk of the targets, but Otton should be right there alongside them, and again, Baker will have plenty for everyone. Right now, Otton is rostered in 47% of ESPN leagues. On the other side of that game, you have Juwan Johnson and the New Orleans Saints, who will probably be throwing the ball a lot to keep up with the Bucs. Johnson started the year on fire with double-digit fantasy numbers over the first 3 weeks, but over the next 3 weeks, he was very disappointing. Then he caught fire again last week and had another double-digit fantasy output. Weeks 1 to 3, he had 28 targets. Weeks 4 to 6, he had 9 targets. And last week, he had 7 targets and 5 catches for 79 yards, which was a season high for yardage. The game against the Bucs could be a shootout, resulting in a lot of targets for Johnson and another double-digit fantasy day. He's currently rostered in 33% of ESPN leagues. Nico Collins is out with a concussion, and Christian Kirk is out with a hamstring injury, so it's very possible Dalton Schultz could be the top target for CJ Stroud in Week 8. His targets and receiving yards have been steadily increasing over the first half of the season, and last week he had 10 targets for 9 catches and 98 yards against Seattle. This week he plays San Francisco, who shouldn't be too much of a problem against the pass either. Although I was optimistic about Jaden Higgins coming into the 2025 season, he hasn't done very much, and it looks like the top wide receiver this week could be Jalen Noel. But I still think Dalton Schultz will finish with the most catches and receiving yards. He's currently rostered in 25% of ESPN leagues and probably on the wire if you need him. Another guy drafted in quite a few leagues and dropped pretty quickly is Colston Loveland. I'm still not very confident in a big performance from him, but Cole Kmet is out against the Ravens this week. If he can get 6 to 8 targets instead of his typical 3 to 4, he will give you a safe floor against a weak Baltimore defense. He's currently rostered in 24% of ESPN leagues. The quarterback situation in New York is bad, and Mason Taylor is banged up. But he had a couple nice games this season and is playing the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday, who have one of the worst pass defenses in the league, especially against tight ends. And the Bengals offense has been pumping since they got Flacco at quarterback, so if the Jets fall behind, they will need to throw, and their top wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, is out with a knee injury. Garrett Wilson got plenty of volume, which is the most important factor for fantasy football, so if Mason Taylor can take some of that away and possibly get 8 to 10 targets on Sunday, he should be a safe play with a lot of upside. With that said, keep an eye on his status, because if he's limited or a game time decision, I would not plug him into my lineup. He's only rostered in 22% of ESPN leagues, so he should be there if you want him. Despite the absence of Malik Neighbors, the Giants' offense has looked great this year, and Theo Johnson has been a big contributor. He's had 4 touchdowns over the last 4 weeks, and only one bad game over that same period, where he had only 2 catches for 27 yards and no touchdowns. That game was against the Philadelphia Eagles, who aren't the best defense, but have been very tough against tight ends, and he's playing them again this week. He's not someone I would start with confidence, but hopefully this game against Philly will be better, and right now he's only rostered in 18% of ESPN leagues. Although we have yet to see a big game from Taysom Hill this year, Kendre Miller is out for the season, which could lead to a few more carries for Taysom, and he could get some goal line work against the Bucs. He's obviously a long shot, but if you're in a very competitive league or want to swing for the fences and hope for a couple rushing touchdowns, this is the kind of game where that could happen. A high-scoring divisional matchup with no Kendre Miller. But it's tough to know if Taysom is the same guy after his ACL surgery, and the Saints need to find the end zone, which has been difficult for them. So he's a very high-risk play, but right now he's only rostered in 3% of ESPN leagues. So if none of those guys I mentioned above are available, you can swing for the fences and grab Taysom Hill.